very soon, in exactly a minute from now, our dignitaries will be arriving in the auditorium and we would have the unveiling of day 2 of ISLP 2. Let us give a huge round of applause for Advocate Aditya Pratap, Advocate Bindu Dubey, Miss Rashmi Deshpande, and our very own Mr. Dheeraj Singh sir, Dr. Shalini Sharma ma'am, as well as Miss Anutama Ghosh ma'am. Can we have all our panelists on the dais? Let us give a warm welcome to all our dignitaries on the dais with a huge round of applause, my dear friends. I request all the students to kindly be seated. Thank you so much to our guests on the dais. I request the guests to kindly be seated. Thank you so much. Namaste, hello, and a very good morning to all present here. I warmly welcome this August gathering to the second International Symposium on Law and Peace organized by MITWPU School of Law in association with the Pune District Bar Association. This International Symposium on Law is the international conglomeration of legal professionals gathering to promote peace through heralding law. Before we commence day 2 of this second edition of ISLP, as famously acronymed, we would like to begin today's program with the World Peace Prayer as per the tradition of Dr. Vishwanath Karad, MIT World Peace University, Pune, Bharat. May I kindly request all the dignitaries on and off the dais, as well as our dear students, to please rise for the World Peace Prayer. Join your hands, close your eyes, and let us all pray to the Almighty to invoke the divine blessings. I request my technical team to kindly relay the World Peace Prayer.
Om Namo Jiyadya Veda Pratipadya Jaya Jaya Swasamvedya Atmarupa Devatuti Ganeshu Sakalartha Mati Prakashu Mane Nivrittidasu Avadhari Goji Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I request everyone to kindly be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed proud moment as well as my privilege to mention that day 1 of ISLP 2 witnessed an overwhelming participation. We had the inaugural session followed by 2 technical sessions in which there was a student-to-student connect, a session which went on very well and received an enthusiastic participation from our young and dynamic students. Let us now unveil the third technical session of ISLP 2022, which is on the theme Gender Neutrality, a Need of an Hour. I request my technical team to kindly relay a session film on Gender Neutrality, a Need of an Hour.
This session is based on gender neutrality, need of the hour. Gender neutrality is a concept that postulates the eradication of distinction between different sexes in the drafting and execution of laws. It aims to make every citizen entitled to equal rights, for example, equal protection of the law, so on and so forth, without distinguishing on sex. This in order to avoid discrimination arising from the impression that there are social roles for which one gender is more suited than another. The disparity in gender equality throughout history has had a significant impact on many aspects of society, including marketing, toys, education, and parenting techniques. In order to increase gender neutrality in recent years, there has been a societal emphasis on utilizing inclusive language and advocating for equality. The session would help shed light on a topic that needs everyone's attention.
So friends, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted in 1948 by the United Nations General Assembly. And therefore, let me take this opportunity to wish you all a very happy Human Rights Day on the 10th of December, as we also witness a pertinent session on this important day. I would now like to kindly request Mr. Dheeraj Singh Sir, the Director of School of Media and Communication, to kindly propose the welcome address for this session. Over to you, sir.
Hello. On behalf of MIT World Peace University, it is my great pleasure and honor to welcome all of you to the third session of our second International Symposium of Law and Peace, being held here at the MIT World Peace University campus in Pune. We are extremely pleased to have with us an amazing panel today that includes Advocate Aniruddha Joshi, Managing Partner, Juris Amo, Ms. Rashmi Deshpande, Partner at Business Law Chamber, Ms. Bindu Dubey, Eminent Lawyer, Mumbai High Court, and Dr. Chinmay Bhosle, Managing Partner, SRB Ojas, Advocate, Bombay High Court. Advocate Aditya Pratap, Practicing Advocate and Managing Partner of Aditya Pratap Law Offices, Mumbai. We all eagerly awaiting to hear from our eminent panel their views, experiences, and wisdom with regard to today's topic, gender neutrality, a need of the hour. It is a very important issue in our times, which have been witnessing change in social mores, technology, and the workplace. We all look forward to hearing the specialist views of our esteemed panels. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let us give a huge round of applause for the welcome address by Dheeraj Singh sir. Friends, it is now time that we honor the distinguished speakers on the dais. May I request Dheeraj Singh sir, Shalini Sharma ma'am, Anuttama Ghosh ma'am to kindly do the honors and felicitate our first distinguished speaker for the day, Advocate Aditya Pratap. Let us give a huge round of applause, friends, for Advocate Aditya Pratap, practicing advocate and managing partner of Aditya Pratap Law Offices, Mumbai. Thank you so much. May I now request our sir and ma'am to kindly felicitate Advocate Bindu Dubeji. Let us have a huge round of applause for Advocate Bindu Dube, an eminent lawyer, Bombay High Court. Thank you so much. May I now request sir and ma'am to kindly felicitate Miss Rashmi Deshpande ji. Let us have a huge round of applause for Miss Rashmi Deshpande, partner at Business Law Chamber. Thank you so much. Can we have another round of huge applauses for our distinguished speakers for the technical session 3, Gender Neutrality, a Need of an Hour. Friends, may I now like to invite the moderator of this session, Miss Anuttama Ghosh, Assistant Professor at School of Law, MIT World Peace University, to kindly address the gathering. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Warm welcome to the dignitaries on and off the dais. We have with us today various eminent personalities to talk about the very topic of gender neutrality. We have with us Advocate Aditya Pratap Singh, we have Rashmi Deshpande ma'am, and we have Bindu ma'am as well with us. And this very topic on the Day of Human Rights is something that is worth discussing and something that is worth participating, and I'm sure all the students today will have a very good idea regarding what gender neutrality is. Because if you see our constitution, it speaks about right to equality as well as right to equity. So what is needed, what is not needed, what is required to protect people's health, I'm sure this session will give us a very good idea regarding the same. Gender neutrality is basically an idea that encourages avoiding negative differentiation among people and the sense of superiority of one gender with that of another. With this, we have a lot of issues at hand, particularly when we talk about implementing gender roles by way of legislature. We do have laws such as Prevention of Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace 2013 that definitely talks about protection of women employees, female employees in an organization, but completely forget about the rights of that of a male employee. They can be subject to harassment as well. In Indian Penal Code, we have provisions of domestic violence, we have 498A, but at the same time, there is no law with regard to protecting men's rights either. So over there, does these laws which are there in place are sufficient or requirement of better laws, gender neutral laws? That is what we will be discussing. With regard to transgender rights, with regard to homosexuality rights, the Indian Penal Code and various other legislatures in India are still silent about it. So in order to bring about neutrality, gender neutrality, these are the topics that we will enlighten upon, and I'm sure our very educated and learned this entire panel will be able to deliver a huge learning experience to all of you, and you all will enjoy this session. Wish you all a very human right day, and I'm sure this discussion will make this entire day of human rights very fruitful and successful for you all also and for this whole learning venture. Thank you all of you. Once again, welcome all the dignitaries over there, and students, I'm sure you all will be very much benefited from this session today. Thank you.
Let us have a huge round of applause for that very insightful address. Thank you so much, Anutama ma'am, to set the context for this session. And with this, we would like to have our first distinguished speaker. But before we invite him, I take the privilege to introduce Advocate Aditya Pratap, practicing advocate and managing partner of Aditya Pratap Law Offices, Mumbai. Advocate Aditya Pratap is a practicing advocate and a managing partner of Aditya Pratap Law Offices in Mumbai, an alumnus of the prestigious Nalsar University of Law, Hyderabad. Aditya Pratap sir joined the bar in 2013. Since then, he has developed an integrated expertise involving both civil and criminal law, with general litigation being his area of practice. He appears before the Bombay High Court, City, Civil and Sessions Court, Magistrates Court, the National Green Tribunal, as well as the Supreme Court. His career spans over 8 years, and he has argued cases across several domains and verticals, including numerous pro bono cases. He has appeared on numerous debates on TV channels like Mirror Now, Zee Business, etc. Along with that, he has also served on the panel of the Real Estate Committee of the IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mumbai. We warmly welcome Advocate Aditya Pratap sir. Let us invite him with a huge round of applause. And sir, may I kindly request you to now address the gathering. Over to you, sir.
Once again, a very good morning to everyone. My sincere thanks to the entire team at MIT Pune for inviting me over. And once again, I had come here in 2020. And once again, it's a pleasure to be here and share my thoughts with you all. The topic for today, as we are well aware, is gender neutrality. And well, gender neutrality and the law. Now, as an advocate, I have practiced in several areas, such as I do a lot of cases in domestic violence, do a lot of cases in divorce matters, but the entire spectrum of family law I practice. And if you ask me, well, India historically, as far as gender neutrality is concerned, people have always found avenues to criticize. But I do feel that today the law has made great strides towards achieving gender, equality, and as well as ensuring that gender justice is achieved. Today, the first thing whenever a matrimonial dispute comes up, it is the wife who requires maintenance. And even today, cases pertaining to domestic violence, etc., grant of maintenance, they go on pending for a long time. And especially, this leads one to ask the question, is the law fair towards women? Now, how would I share my perspectives on this? I can only share it through live examples, where now I don't intend to assume any gender-specific position here. Only thing is, the reliefs which are available under the Act, are they granted or not? Like these days, recently, when it comes to maintenance, the Supreme Court passed the case of Rajneesh versus Neha, wherein the court directed both the parties to file 3 years full and complete financial statements so that the court can have the full picture. Now, this judgment of the Supreme Court is indeed a major step forward, because it ensures that the entire truth of the financial positions, which hitherto the parties were always trying to suppress, etc., is on record before the Honorable Court. The drawback of this is that because even at the stage of hearing of interim applications in DV maintenance cases, the courts now have to scrutinize these documents like chartered accountants. Like ultimately, lawyers and judges are not chartered accountants. It's like it requires a very skilled lawyer to take the judge through all the financial statements, explain the financials, and try and seek justice for his client. And even apart from this, I have seen that even in the middle of such information overburden, the magistrates do their best in ensuring that the women get at least a living maintenance. Though, of course, once again, especially when you see maintenance cases in a city like Bombay, like maintenance of 40,000 rupees per month, it is not sufficient to even afford accommodation. So, yes, one can criticize that is a more advantageously placed party getting a higher advantage. I would say that is not the intent of the law. However, as far as the implementation is concerned, like giving parties the relief they seek, well, I do believe that as far as gender equality is concerned, though I think there is still some mileage to be achieved there. Now, another area where something is of importance is where especially the issue of equality between the sexes is in corporate boards and governance. Of course, these days, the representation of women directors on the board has considerably increased. And I do feel like while the latest statistics would be encouraging, historically, the Companies Act did its part by ensuring the mandatory requirement, the mandatory presence of a woman on corporate boards. However, one also needs to understand that among all the promoters of companies, because several companies, can be divided into two categories roughly: promoter-driven companies and professionally run companies. What is the extent of the role of women in promoter-driven companies? There's a good chance you will find an overwhelming male dominance. And rather in professionally driven companies, what is the share of women representation there? In both these, especially in the second criteria where there is more relevance of merit, one can very easily conclude that more needs to be achieved, because again, as we see the representation of women in the top boards, there is more to be done. Coming to the Union Cabinet and the Union Parliament, again, one look at the Union Cabinet and you will see that once again, women comprise half the population of the country. And among half the country's population, you have the number of cabinet at single digits, the number of, barring one or two, Nirmala Sitharaman, we don't have any major key ministerial position occupied by a woman. Then also when you look at parliamentary seats, again, proportion to the women's share in the population, their representation is much less as such. So again, the question is, how much of this can be cured by law? Because I honestly feel that this has yet to do more with social factors, because law might not be a cure for everything. Ultimately, it is society itself. Like today, when you see the war which is happening today, despite all the, there's an international session also after this, despite all the legal statutes in force, law happened. So what I feel is that as far as more than gender neutrality, following the cause of gender justice, it is extremely important that implementation of the law should be better. Why? Take the case of protection officers and DV cases. When the Domestic Violence Act, I'll again come on domestic violence because it is the first go-to remedy for a woman in the hour of need. In a Domestic Violence Act matter, when we go to serve the protection officers, we see the protection officers behaving similarly like police personnel. You have to serve the women and child branch of the police. Again, it comes under the same branch. You don't see any sensitive, a well-trained protection officer who's able to empathize with the suffering woman and take necessary steps. Further, when we come to the aspect of time-bound decision of matters, I can say from practical matters, even when a prayer for maintenance is made, opposite party, mediation will go on so and so, so and so. But again, there is no provision in law by which the court, even the law permits interim maintenance. Even interim maintenance is granted after several rounds of arguments and after comprehensive analysis of the financials. Why can't the courts evolve a procedure where spot maintenance can be given, where even during the mediation process, even if there's one mediation today, the next date will come after 2 or 3 weeks. Why can't on the spot some monetary payment immediately be directed to the concerned woman in distress? Secondly, we have the issue, and more often than not, I honestly feel that especially in maintenance cases, of course, courts have held, the Supreme Court has held that a husband should even do manual labor in order to pay the maintenance of his wife. Further, the court has also held that even a woman, even if a woman is educated, she cannot be denied her right to maintenance. So, while I do feel that society has made great strides, the judiciary for its part has made considerable strides. In fact, it would not be fair to blame the judiciary at all. I do feel that somewhere the law can be more precise in its execution, more time-bound in its execution, and rather the presumption should be, like, of course, right now there's no concept of presumption as such. It's about both parties. They come and, because ideally, and the doctrine of adverse inference applies. Like if a person does not give his financials, the law, the law basically assumes against him, infers against him. So we have discussed the maintenance aspect, we have discussed the divorce aspect. Now, once again, I would like to harp the point that as an advocate, when it comes to women's rights in India, I would certainly not like to protest much because the law has done its part. I'm willing to be questioned on that. Where I feel that law has failed is areas like female feticide, dowry demands in marriage. Even today, dowry is being demanded in marriage. Even today, who gave how many ornaments, who received how much, kisne kisko kitna diya, that is even today again a topic of discussion in marriages. Then we have caste politics, community politics. Ultimately, the question is, how much will the law cure? The point is, have you sensitized the education system? Because it is in the education system that people should learn to think over such, such retrograde issues. So, on a closing note, when I look back at India's developments and look forward to the future, I certainly feel that conviction rates under the PCP and DT Act need to increase. The state has miserably failed when it comes to enforcing the PCP and DT Act, because even today you have gross disparity in gender ratios. Today, does a woman feel free when she walks in the streets? Is a woman free from getting, bullied or others? It continues to happen. And the recent video of the Korean blogger shows it is only becoming worse. And once again, the malaise is the same, an inefficient and incompetent enforcement machinery which might offer curative justice to an extent, but certainly not preventive justice. Once again, my sincere thanks to everyone for inviting me here, and it has been a pleasure to address you all on this issue. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Friends, let us give a huge round of applause for Advocate Aditya Pratap, who gave us a reality check with a glaring statistics on this pertinent issue. Thank you so much once again, sir. Friends, it is now time to invite our next distinguished speaker for the day, Advocate Bindu Dubeji. But before we invite her, I would like to introduce her. And it's my great fortune to introduce Advocate Bindu Dubeji, eminent lawyer, Bombay High Court. She is a founder of a registered law firm with offices in Mumbai and Navi Mumbai, who handles matters related to criminal, family, corporate, and civil. Her firm handles cases in sessions in High Court of Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, Punjab and Haryana, New Delhi and Gujarat, and Supreme Court of India. She is a proactive social activist, speaker, and educator engaged in various activities related to education, social awareness, cultural and social, and rights issues with National Human Rights Commission, National Commission of Women, and National Child Rights. She is a founder at Advocate Bindu Dubey and Associates, a founder at NRI Lawyer in India, a trustee and chairperson at Bindura Foundation, a national member and state president, Cyber Security Council at Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, an advisor and on advisory board member at Cyber Security Company, Laden Solution Dubai, a member of BJP Maharashtra Pradesh Karyakarini, Beti Bachao Beti Padhao Cell, a state secretary from BJP Maharashtra Uttar Bharatiya Morcha. We warmly welcome Advocate Bindu Dubeji. Let us all give a huge round of applause for ma'am. And ma'am, may I kindly request you to now address the gathering. Over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Before starting anything, I would like to thank the management of college for inviting me over here. And it's a sheer pleasure for me to be with students. I love to be with students because I get to know and learn new things with them, of course. Well, the topic is gender neutrality here. The time is really very short. Like, if we just start discussing this topic, it will take hours and hours and hours. So, to start with, I was invited here in this college by a male, Dr. Saurabh, Mr. Ayush, another male. He kept on coordinating with me to call me here. Another male student, he called me here, he helped me here to be here. So, and one more thing, the driver who took me safely from Mumbai to Pune is also a male. So what I can say, that being a female, I have never been in the habit of seeing men in a bad light. Because of course we are coming from a family unit, we are coming from a family, we are coming from a society where men and women, they are equal stakeholders. And being a woman, I could not have been doing anything if I was not having the support of the male members of my family. Well, so Advocate Aditya, he was speaking about his practical cases and everything, and I was completely agreeing with him. Whatever he was telling here, all these were just practical problems that we are facing. So now what happens? There are a lot of acts that are meant specially to protect women. DV Act is one of those. Then we are having POSH. Then we are having POXO is something which is gender neutral. That is the act. But that is covering only males till the 18 years of age. After that, males somehow, they feel insecure. Because you must have noticed, because I have been handling cases from both the sides, from males as well as from a female side. So what happens, many a times, females, they come up with wrong complaints, wrong FIRs of 498A, along with other sections. They try to impose a lot of sections like forgery or fraud or 376, anything, whatever they think, they do that. Why? Just to settle scores. And what happens? Ultimately, we are seeing the data is increasing, that there is a lot of atrocities are being done against females. So that is also one point. Of course, females are suffering, that is one story. And males too are suffering, that is the other side of story. I have seen a lot of males, in fact, today, one of my clients, he's very restless since last 3-4 days because he has received a call from commissioner's office. He's so scared. I told him so many times that you'll be just counseled. They'll be taking your statement, nothing else. Don't worry, you have all the proof. But the guy is really frightened. Why? Because he knows that if something happens, he can go behind bars. He is really clueless about the sections that can be imposed on him. So this is one side of story. The wife, what she wanted exactly, she has already done a DV case on him 2 years back. She has started getting interim maintenance. So now why she has started again blackmailing this guy? Just because she wants the sole custody of child and she doesn't want to follow the order of the access order that was given in the court in the DV matter by the judge. So basically she wants to get rid of this man, that is her husband, without giving him any access of the child. So now, if we talk to this man, he is going to talk everywhere that females are misusing the laws. Fine, so this is also one side that I wanted to put forth. Well, the way Mr. Aditya Pratap was saying that there is some sort of insensitivity of protection officer. Yeah, that is also truth. The same thing happens in police stations, and we are having a lot of agencies, a lot of organizations, a lot of forum and all to protect women. Still, their rights are not being protected properly. Again, a practical example. There is a woman, who is in a very bad marriage since last 10 years. She has left the boy. The boy is a goon from some other state outside Maharashtra. What he has done, after filing the case with Women Commission, the Women Commission ordered the police station, as per jurisdiction, to take action. Now what happened? There is a female IO. The female IO does not want to work for a female. That is also a problem. So we can never say that a female is going to work for female. In fact, I have encountered a situation in one of the courts where there was a rape victim, and it was such a big matter, and the judge was female, the lawyer was female, the victim was of course female, a lot of, the public prosecutor too was female, and the judge was so insensitive, she passed a remark, "You don't look like a rape victim." What was she expecting? That is also one question. So anyway, so these are some tactical things. If we talk about gender neutrality and gender equality, there are two things, two different things. If I'm talking about gender equality, it means that this is my office. I have to have 50% male employees and 50% female employees. That's like that. If I'm talking about gender neutrality, it means only the person who is suitable for the job, that person should be hired as per the skill sets, knowledge, etc. So the debate of gender neutrality versus gender equality can go on and on and on for hours, days, months and years. There is one act, that is POSH Act, that is meant specifically for protection of women at their workplace. A woman who is going to workplace should feel safe, and this is mandatory for all the organizations who are having number of employees more than 10. Even this law is being misused. So sometimes what happens, the problem is that the suffering women, they don't get the justice because either it is delayed, very delayed, and they just lose hope. Or what happens, sometimes they themselves become the perpetrators. What happens in a corporate scenario, if a female is not working well, if the male boss is trying to suggest her that she should focus on her work, and he is not giving her increment or something is happening, what will happen? The female, normally a lot of females, they go for filing a fake complaint under POSH Act with ICC, that is Internal Complaints Committee in their organization. And I'm very much sure that a lot of people from this very good gathering, you must have encountered this situation, or you must have really seen or felt this situation, that this is something that is happening everywhere. Not every time the males are perpetrators, and not every time the females are sufferers or victims. So I hope I'm not sounding against females. I'm definitely not against females. But I feel that we should also think in a gender neutral manner. It should start from here. I should be treated as a person, not as a male or female. I should be respected for my knowledge, for my skills, for my work, for my ethics, etc., for my capability, and not because I'm a female or a male. So this is the thing. Before putting allegations on any particular sect, we have to see whether the person is deserving or not. If we talk about, there is basically one law that is very famous, what females do, Section 376, all of us know. This law is not gender neutral. After Nirbhaya case, there was a committee formed, Justice Verma Committee. What happened that he came up with a lot of suggestions, and because he was getting a lot of complaints from a lot of groups, males, LGBTQ community and other people. So they actually tried to replace the word woman with person and rape with sexual assault so that it can become a gender neutral law. But after so much hue and cry from feminist groups, this had to remain intact. Finally, after the Criminal Amendment Bill 2013, it remained as it is. So it could not be made a gender neutral law. So the law is important in any society, and any society is a reflection of its law basically. So both Both the things reflect each other, law and society. The laws are enough, but there should be proper preparation to implement those laws. There should be one more mechanism to check that no misuse of any law is happening. If I start talking about cases, a lot of cases are there. Sometimes males are very good, sometimes females are very good. So we cannot brand a particular gender as right and a particular gender as wrong. We cannot do that. I have a lot of females who really need justice and who are not getting justice. I have seen a lot of females. You were talking about this asset affidavit filing as per the this Rajneesh versus Neha case. What happens? A lot of people, they hide their income. Why do they hide their income? So that they are not required to give any maintenance to the wife. It's okay if you don't want to give any maintenance to your wife, but you should not ignore your child. People become so blind and so inhuman that they even forget their small child. One of my female clients is suffering for maintenance since months. She is forced to live with her child at her matrimonial home where her father is a cancer patient, her mother is a TB patient. Her husband knows very well, he is earning very well, and he knows that the child is in a very threatening kind of situation because he is living with patients of TB. The child can get infected with TB, still the person is just trying to avoid maintenance after filing one or another application. So, in fact, a lot of laws are there, but the need is to make sure that the proper implementation is there. I would like to put forth here one more example. There is one case, POCSO. This is a gender neutral law. There is a client of mine whose daughter was being sexually assaulted by her own husband. That is, the daughter was being assaulted by the father itself. The father is an influential person. I don't know how come they are able to manage everything. Anyway, this is the normal scenario that is happening. So, after a lot of efforts, after reaching a lot of forums and all, finally the police called this lady. They got scared that now they are being watched by commissioner office and all. Still, what happened? They tried to scare the little child and her mother so much that finally she backed out. She said that I don't want to complain because it's about my daughter. And she is going through a trauma. So even this is not good. So having law is one thing and having their implementation is one thing. And just law and implementation cannot do anything if the change is not coming from inside. Awareness is also one point. If you are not aware, you are not empowered. Knowledge is something that gives a power. If we are having knowledge of certain things, if we know that this is a crime against us, only then we'll be able to raise voice. Sometimes people know that this is a crime and they have all the right to complain against this crime. But what happens? They don't know the proper channel of complaining for this crime, against this crime. What should happen in the society? As a society, will have to change. We'll have to instill gender neutral values in our children. How? When a student is coming to a school or college, the student is a student, not a male or female. That is something that is more required. A female child should not be told that pink is your favorite color or you like pink and blue is for boys. That stereotype should not be anywhere. The society will have to change and will have to start it from the family, from the college itself, schools itself. We'll have to train our daughters and our sons. Our sons, they need to know that they have to behave properly. Even our sons need protection. So basically, what I want to say here is that we all are living in a civilized society. Of course, there are crimes, and crimes are bound to happen in any society, but there should be a proper mechanism to redress and address those crimes. And there should be proper values instilled in children from an early age so that the girls know that, yes, this is our right, and we should say no to such behavior. We are not meant to bear atrocities anywhere. Similarly, we'll have to train our boys that they have to behave like gentlemen without anything, without any other bias against the females. So a lot of things can be said, but I think my time is over. So I would like to just stop here itself. But before that, I would like to thank everyone. And thank you so much, everyone, for giving me a patient hearing for 10-15 minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am, for sensitizing all of us on this very important topic with your comparative analysis. Friends, it's now time that we invite our next distinguished speaker for the day. But before we invite her, let me take my privilege in introducing our next distinguished speaker. We have with us, friends, Advocate Rashmi Deshpande, partner at Business Law Chamber. Advocate Rashmi Deshpande is currently a partner at the Business Law Chamber in Mumbai, prior to which she was a partner at Khaitan and Company, Mumbai. She completed her law degree from ILS Law College, Pune. She has an experience of more than 15 years in tax litigation and consultancy and works in several sectors including banking, NBFCs, manufacturing companies, retail conglomerates, crypto businesses, consultancy firms, pharmaceuticals, startups, and real estate. Her vast experience comes from the different positions she has held of Associate Director, Senior Associate and Assistant Manager at some of the best companies in the country like KPMG, Deloitte, so on and so forth. We warmly welcome Advocate Rashmi Deshpande ji. Thank you so much, ma'am, for gracing our occasion with your presence. And may I now request you to address the gathering. Over to you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Good morning, everybody. And wonderful to see all these young faces and enthusiastic faces and our tomorrow. And before I begin, let me just thank your management for calling me here. It's a privilege. I was never associated with MIT. I didn't have the privilege to study here. My brother did, though, and I remember some 15, 20 years ago when I used to come and drop him. At that point of time, you used to have, and you still do, you have your peace prayer. So once I came to drop him, and I was in a hurry to go back to my college, I started my bike. Your peace process, your peace prayer had just started. And even though people were standing outside, everybody was attentive. The moment I started my bike, everybody looked at me. And then I realized, oh my God, this is something that they take very seriously. And immediately I stopped my bike, let the prayer get over, and only then I pushed off. So it's a very, very good, it's a privilege to be in an institution which actually inculcates respect and starts the day with such a wonderful prayer. So I really like that about MIT. Now, a lot has been said about gender neutrality. Advocate Pratap, Advocate Bindu, they have addressed some of the very crucial questions. But as Advocate Bindu said, it's a topic that we can talk about for hours and hours, and we will never find any solutions unless and until the laws are changed and the mindset is changed. Let me begin by telling you a story which my father told me yesterday when he got to know I'm talking about gender neutrality. So he told me about a story. He was in the army, so obviously half his stories are coming from army. He told me that very recently, and this is a true incident which happened in Baramulla. You must be all aware of Baramulla. It's a high militancy area. There was this lady doctor who was basically working on a soldier who was badly injured. She's working furiously, and there was a problem. So in the middle of the night, the CO, the commanding officer of that area, was given a call. One of the persons over there said, "Sir, the thing is that there is a soldier who is badly injured, and there is a doctor who is working on it. But the thing is, he's so badly injured that we will have to shift him to Srinagar because we don't have the resources to take care of him right now." But the doctor refuses to go in the process or follow the protocol that we have asked the doctor to do while shifting the patient from Baramulla to Srinagar. The CO was furious. He said, how can my command or the process that we have put in place, how can it be refused? He said, put the doctor online. So the female doctor came online. She explained the process. She said that your guys are asking me to take the soldier in an armored car which is closed. If I take him in the armored car which is closed, I will not be able to hold his IV. There are a lot of issues with the armored car. I cannot take that. And this went on for good 2 and 3 minutes. Finally, she just put her foot down and said, CO, I understand you're the commanding officer, but who is the doctor over here? The CO was taken aback. He was actually not used to being talked like that. He said, okay, doctor, you do whatever is right, but if something goes wrong, it's going to be your responsibility. She said, I'll take the responsibility. Don't you worry about that. And it was a couple of hours of drive. She took the patient in an open air. Midway, there were these other cars which were escorting. One of the car even broke down. It did not matter. They continued with the drive. They reached Srinagar, got the patient, and he got the proper whatever necessary treatment was there. She was with the patient for the entire night. When the patient was stabilized, finally, she called up the CO. She said, everything is fine. The patient is pretty stabilized right now. I'm going back. I have to go for my own checkup. The CO was, what checkup? She said, I'm 6 months pregnant and I want to see whether I'm fine or not. So you see, the moral of this incident is irrespective of whether you're a male or a female, as long as you know what you're doing, gender doesn't matter. And that is the kind of a debate that we want to have over here. You're a male or a female, or you belong to a third gender, it doesn't matter. The society with the help of laws have to come up with situations where ultimately your skill matters. What matters is how good you are at work, how responsible you are, and that's what will take you ahead. Now, there are a lot of incidents which Advocate Pratap, Advocate Bindu, they have explained to you. Now, I don't have that interesting practice. I work in a very dry corporate and taxation world, which does not recognize whether you're female or a male. As long as you're wrong, you're behind the bars. It's a good thing in a way. It's a gender-neutral law when you're talking about taxation. But we are not just living in a world where we are practicing corporate law, we are practicing taxation. Within the corporate circles, as both the lawyers have mentioned, you have posh laws. Posh laws are also something which are very new. And thankfully, they are there so that the females, to a very large extent, they feel little comfortable working around in an office which could be majoritarily full of males. You have your posh laws. But again, posh laws in itself, they have issues because they are only protecting females right now. What about the males? Are you saying the males are not going to be exploited? You're very wrong in thinking that. Everybody knows it does happen. When you're talking about IPC, the rape is only recognized for women. What about males? Are we not supposed to have this kind of laws protecting the males also? Or are we going to give them the notion that no, you're a man. You cannot be seen as a weak person. You cannot go and cry to the police that I was raped. This notion has to be changed. You have another set of laws. One of the laws is POSCO, which is meant for children. That law does not recognize whether you're a girl or whether you're a boy. As long as you're 18 and below, you are protected by law. Those are the kind of gender-neutral situations that you need to inculcate in those laws which do not do that as of now. Now, let's understand. But before we go again into the laws, let's understand the concept itself. And again, I want to congratulate you guys that at this stage, your college, your university has decided to have these kind of discussions. Because once you have these discussions, that's when the social awareness comes in. And when you have the social awareness, then it percolates into law, legislation making. So when you have those discussions right now, some of you, and I'm very sure, you will be ending up legislating on these kind of laws few years down the line. So when you're talking about gender neutrality, understand there is a subtle difference between gender neutrality and gender equality. What is gender equality? As the phrase suggests, everybody should get an equal treatment. If you're a female and you're, let's say, for years, your society, the patriarchal society, is giving you a treatment which is not ensuring that you come up, then you have to fight for equality. But what is gender neutrality? Gender neutrality is irrespective of whatever gender you belong to. You're a male, you're a female, or you are a third gender. You have to be treated equally and you have to be given equal opportunities. Gender should never be a reason to not give you any sort of opportunity. So the idea of an equal or a just society is the same, which is inculcated in our constitution. That doesn't matter whatever you are. For example, if there is a man and he wants to go around wearing a sari, or there is a man who wants to wear nail polish, what's wrong with that? That's the gender neutral situation in the society we should be living in. If there is a woman who says that I want to be the primary breadwinner of my household, what's wrong with that? If there is a man who says that no, I am not interested in working, I want to take care of my house and let my wife work if she's interested in working, I want to be a homemaker, what is wrong with that? So let's get rid of these stereotypical situations which has been, talked about for years and years. Maybe people have been practicing for a very long time. And we are in a society right now where LGBTQ is also coming up. Very recently, maybe not even recently, but 2 years back, the Supreme Court, said that there is absolutely nothing wrong in having the same-sex relationship. That's gender neutrality. These are the laws which need to be inculcated in the society. Because at the end of the day, what is desirable? Desirable in the world is that you get recognized. Like the doctor in my story, which I told you in the beginning, you get recognized for the work that you're doing, irrespective of whatever is your gender. Now, there is also a term called gender blindness, which is completely adverse or does effectively opposite of what gender equality or gender neutrality thrives to achieve. Gender blindness is that it's not basically making laws irrespective of the gender. Gender blindness is not recognizing the subtle requirements of each gender. Oh, it's already a time. Like Bindu said, we can go on talking about this for a very long time and we will never know when to shut up. But I'll complete my point. About gender blindness, we are making laws irrespective of understanding as to what is required for each gender. There is a kind of sensitivity which is required for females. For example, let's say a female, let's say she's working in a corporate culture, in an office and everywhere else, But she's the one, if she decides to have a child, okay, she requires that 6 months. Because she has to feed the child, she has to take care of the child. It is necessary for her body to recuperate. You have to make the laws not by being gender blind. You have to make the laws by being gender sensitive also. So the idea is, and I see all the faces sitting in front of me. You guys are going to be the next legislators. You guys are going to be, customizing the laws. You guys are going to be working on interpretation of the laws. You have to keep in mind that, unless and until the laws are changed, unless and until we have these discussions in the society, we are not going to go anywhere. And it begins by having the change of mindset. So I hope that everyone who is sitting over here today in the university, you go about your careers in such a way that what is practiced is that how good you are at your skills, irrespective of what is your gender. Thank you very much, and all the best to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am, for, of course, sharing those interesting anecdotes and also infusing us with the thought-provoking concepts. Thanks indeed to this distinguished panel. Friends, it's now time to have a very strong voting for the resolution of the third technical session. And before we all cast our valuable votes, I request my technical team to relay the resolution of the third technical session on gender neutrality, need of the hour. We have it here. While we read, I would like to reiterate for all of us. We, the participants of the second edition of International Symposium on Law and Peace, hereby affirm that we shall make no distinction between individuals on the basis of gender. We promise that we as the future generations of Mother India will ensure that individuals are analyzed on the basis of their capabilities and not on the basis of their gender. We promise a fair and unbiased nation. Let me request all who are sitting in the audience as well as our distinguished panel members to cast their valuable vote for or against the motion. The resolution is right in front of the screen. You can raise your hands and cast your vote. Of course, I can see hands going up. Are you in for the motion? Are you in for the resolution? Can we all raise our hands high and express our willingness to abide by this important resolution? And that looks like a 99% yes for the resolution. Let us have a huge round of applause, my dear friends, for being sensitized youth of the future Bharat. Well, may I now request all the dignitaries to kindly rise for a group photograph, and I also request my technical team to please capture this special moment so that we can cherish this forever of the third technical session of ISLP2. Let us have a huge round of applause for all our distinguished speakers and a very interesting panel. Thank you so much. And now, I request the guests to kindly be seated, and I also request Dr. Shalini Sharma ma'am, the Dean of School of Economics, to kindly propose the vote of thanks for today.
Thank you, Dr. Bagchi. It is indeed a great pleasure to be standing here to propose the vote of thanks. We are highly grateful to our eminent speakers here, Mr. Aditya Pratap ji, Ms. Bindu Dubey ji, and Ms. Rashmi Deshpande, who have thrown such vital light on the pertinent topic which we are discussing. This topic is something which is not being discussed today, but this will continue for years and years to go ahead. If I recall, in 1995, I did my master's, And at that time, in the LLB, we didn't have BA LLB, we just had the LLB course. We had, I think, hardly 5%, 2% women, and the rest was totally dominated by males. But today, even if you look at the panel, we are predominated by women. So I think over a period of time, the very fact that the things are changing and we are going towards gender neutrality is very evident. It is very evident by looking at all the students sitting here as well, that we are moving towards it. And as very rightly said by the panelists, it is the profession. Let's be a professional, rather than looking at who it is, whether it's a male, female, or someone else. So they have very rightly thrown light on being a professional rather than being anybody who you are. Secondly, another important point that has come up from the discussion is, it is the society in which we are living, the safety which we are feeling in the society, the laws which are percolating into the society. The laws are there, but how safe are we to access the laws? That is another important, pertinent thing. We need to create that environment for our males as well as females, so that the law can be governed properly. And with that, I'm highly grateful to all the three panelists here with us, the speakers who have given us so much input, so much thought for thinking. I think we can have debates and continue debating about it. So on behalf of MIT World Peace University, I'm highly grateful to all the eminent speakers, to all the participants here, to all the dignitaries of the dais, on the dais, and the technical team. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for expressing your gratitude with so much of warmth and affection. Friends, as you know that this marks a momentary end though, because we are about to very soon begin the next technical session. And before we begin the next technical session, which is on another very pertinent topic, international relations, society and we, I would like to thank all our distinguished panelists for such a mind-boggling discussion that we had today. And indeed, this deliberation has touched upon our young minds. Once again, friends, can we all give a huge round of applause for this very interesting panel? Thank you so much to all the panel members. And I request the student volunteers to kindly escort our guests off the dais. Thank you so much once again to all our distinguished panelists. And now, before we begin the next technical session, I would like to mention that we already have the guests for the next technical session. Thank you so much, sirs and ma'am. We can surely be seated for another important discussion that is about to begin shortly. And it is indeed our great fortune. And I would like to mention that we have with us two professors who have joined online for this technical session, Professor Gracio Muzukongera and Professor Gary Lilianthal. So friends, can we also have a huge round of applause for all who have joined online from the different parts of the world and all who have joined offline for this very important session. Students, can we please have a huge round of applause? Let us see the excitement building for the final session of ISLP 2. I would also like to mention that we'll be expecting Dr. Vijay Khare, Senior Professor, Head, Department of Defense and Strategic Studies from Savitribai Phule Pune University shortly. He is yet to join us. Once again, namaste, hello, and a warm welcome to all the distinguished guests for the fourth technical session of International Symposium on Law and Peace, ISLP 2 2022, being organized in this year, a two-day international conglomeration where professionals have gathered to promote peace through heralding law. And now it is time to commence this technical session. Let us unveil the most awaited deliberation by the bright minds by playing a short film on the theme of this session, which is International Relations, Society and We. May I request my technical team to relay a theme video on International Relations, Society and We.
This session is based on international relations, society and we. International relations is the study of the relations of states with each other and with international organizations and certain subnational entities. For example, bureaucracies, political parties, and interest groups. The broadened definition and scope of the study of international relations were among the fundamental contributions of scholars of the interwar period. Many of these innovators were enlisted by governments during the Second World War for work in intelligence and propaganda, as well as other aspects of wartime planning. In this respect, the war stimulated systematic social scientific investigations of international phenomena. It also led to important technological advances, notably the computer, that would later have a major impact on the study of international relations. This session will briefly give an insight on the importance of the future of international relations and its impact.
Friends, as we all know that we are also celebrating a Human Rights Day today on 10th December, a very historic and significant occasion for having the second day of ISLP. And we are also honored to have amongst us our very own Dr. Santosh Kumar Sir, Dean, School of Liberal Arts from MIT World Peace University. May I kindly request Dr. Santosh Kumar Sir, Dean of School of Liberal Arts, MIT World Peace University, to kindly propose the welcome address for this session. Sir, over to you.
Very good morning, good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for inviting me for this very pleasant duty. Friends, we know that we are celebrating Human Rights Day today. And what a coincidence that this theme actually is also going to be talking about human rights and the international relations and the peace, how could we bring it there? So everything is converging on a very right platform, on a very right time. This is a very important session, and to express their thoughts, which will be, I'm sure, going to be very stimulating. We have a panel of distinguished speakers, thought leaders, advocates, so people who have been practicing and people who have been teaching. Let me introduce the first member here, Dr. Vijay Khare. I think he'll be joining us shortly. So he's Dean, Faculty of Humanities, and is Senior Professor and Head, Department of Defense and Strategic Studies, Savitribai Phule, Pune University. Professor Khare has been awarded many fellowships, and he has attended so many courses nationally, internationally, and I think he's one of the very apt person to be addressing this particular theme. Joining us online would be our second speaker, Professor Gracia Imbuzuga Kwangira, and he is a person who is teacher of international criminal law. Other than teaching activities and dispensing his administrative positions in various academic institutions, he is also the guest researcher at a very prestigious Max Planck University of Comparative Public Law in Heidelberg. The third speaker, again joining us online, would be Professor Gary Lilienthal. He is president of Carrington Rand, a collaborative network of about 60 scholars from around the world. He is author of numerous publications, which includes Scopus publications, etc., etc. And he has worked as a law professor in several universities internationally, like Sydney, Malaysia, China, Ethiopia, Uzbekistan, etc. Presently, he is a professor at Nalsa University in Hyderabad. The third speaker we have is very celebrated advocate, Shri Pradeep Rai ji. He is a senior advocate, Supreme Court of India, Vice President, Supreme Court Bar Association. He is an alumnus of Banaras Hindu University. Advocate Roy has over 25 years of experience of arguing before various courts of this country, including Supreme Court of India. He was designated as senior advocate in the year 2015. He has taken on the mantle of Vice President of Supreme Court Bar Association, and in this capacity, he has started many initiatives for the legal fraternity, which includes establishing committees like Grievance Committee, Health Committee, etc. He is a member of National Anti-Doping Agency and has been serving as the chairman and trustee of the Global Indian Legal Research Foundation. We also have Advocate Aditya Pratap, who is a noted lawyer and also the advisory board of MITWPU. We have on the panel Advocate Shiv Shankar Sharma, who is a commercial and civil lawyer and who regularly appears for clients in the National Company Law Tribunals and Delhi High Court. He graduated from prestigious Nalsa University in 2014, worked at Shardul Amarchand Mangaldas in Delhi for 3 years, post which he completed his LLM from Cambridge as Nehru Trust Scholar. Advocate Sharma is a solicitor, qualified solicitor, England and Wales, and currently advises individuals and corporate clients in Gurgaon and Delhi NCR. He is also been teaching at Bennett Law School as a visiting faculty. Friends, I, on my personal behalf and on behalf of the senior management and the entire university, especially Reverend Vishwanath Ji Karad sir and Rahul Ji Karad sir, to all of you and our distinguished panel here. So, looking forward to a very exciting panel here and session this afternoon. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir, for that warm welcome. Can we have a huge round of applause for Dr. Santosh Kumar, sir? Friends, it is now time to honor our very distinguished panel, and doing the honors will be Dr. K. Girisan, sir, Dr. Santosh Kumar, sir, and Dr. Kalpana Jayas, ma'am. Let us give a huge round of applause as we honor our first distinguished speaker, Advocate Pradeep Rai sir, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court of India, Vice President, Supreme Court Bar Association. Can we have a huge round of applause, my friends, for Advocate Pradeep Rai sir. Thank you so much. Next, doing the honors will be Girisan sir and Santosh Kumar sir. Friends, let us again give a huge round of applause for Advocate Aditya Pratap sir, who has graciously accepted our request of giving us some very important insights on the fourth technical sessions theme, International Relations, Society and We. Thank you so much. Now may we honor Advocate Shivankar Sharma sir, practicing advocate, Supreme Court, High Court and tribunals. Doing the honors are Dr. K. Girisan sir, Dr. Santosh Kumar sir and Dr. Kalpana Jayas ma'am. Can we have a huge round of applause, friends, for Advocate Shivankar Sharma sir. Thank you so much. I know we are progressing towards the break time, but still, can we have some enthusiastic clappings and applauses for this distinguished panel, please, my dear friends? And before we begin with this important deliberation, may we now invite Dr. Kalpana Jayas ma'am, Assistant Professor at School of Law, MIT World Peace University, to kindly address the gathering. I would request the moderator of the session, Dr. Kalpana Jayas ma'am, to please address the gathering. Over to you, ma'am.
Good morning, students. Good morning, people on the dais. Advocate Pradeep Rai. And it's a privilege to share the stage people like the distinguished speaker we do have today. I have been given the responsibility to introduce the session of the day. And the topic of fourth technical session is International Relations, Society and We. So I would locate a little on world history about it. Two centuries of past have been making the nations, and it had been an era of conflict. So history of past 2 century years, which was shaped and reshaped by wars, and war is not only about warfare, military conduct of the war, but crucial to the political, social, and cultural behavior of the states. War and fear of war have been the far most powerful among all influences that have shaped the course of international relations over the past 2 centuries. The modern world has been unmade by several times of war. I am locating the major conflicts historically: 1792, 1815, where we see French Revolution, unification of Germany and Italy. First World War, 1914 to 1918, and Second World War, 1939 to 1945. And Treaty of Augsburg is the first instance of meeting for the purpose of promoting peace in the world. Then Congress of Vienna, after French Revolution, we see the very successful attempt on the part of nation states to establish and regulate international relations. But after 100 years of success of peace globally, we see outbreak of First World War. And we see the appearance of League of Nations as an attempt to regulate international relations and reduce international tensions. And League of Nations had been a toothless tiger, could not help it much. And we see Second World War, where 4 crore people were killed. These deaths have been estimated deaths. But after closing of Second World War, we found very important organ,
that is United Nations, and most of the nations which are signatory to the UN Charter. So Chapter 4 of UN Charter has been incorporated by Article 51 of Indian Constitution, which promises to the whole world to promote international security, peace, and to promote and foster friendly relations with the international states. And so far as the most important aspect of Article 51 of Indian Constitution is the resolution of conflicts. World would never be without conflict, but we need to have a resolution that is a pacific settlement of the dispute globally, which Chapter 4th of UN Charter is there, and we are signatory to that charter and have incorporated successfully, and India has set historical examples of promoting peace, security, and friendly relations, having adopted the defensive policy whenever there is an attack on the boundary, never invaded any nations. So keeping in mind, giving the dais an opportunity to the distinguished speaker on this subject. Thank you so much, Pranima, for giving me this opportunity to introduce the subject of the 4th technical session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for setting the context just at the right pace of this important deliberation. And friends, now it's time we invite our first distinguished speaker for the 4th technical session, Advocate Aditya Pratap sir. But before we invite sir, I would like to introduce him. Advocate Aditya Pratap is a practicing advocate and managing partner of Aditya Pratap Law Offices in Mumbai. An alumnus of the prestigious Nalsa University of Law, Hyderabad, Aditya Pratap joined the bar in 2013. Since then, he has developed an integrated expertise involving both civil and criminal law, with general litigation being his area of practice. He appears before the Bombay High Court, City Civil and Sessions Court, Magistrate Courts, the National Green Tribunal, as well as the Supreme Court. His career spans over 8 years, and he has argued cases across several domains and verticals, including numerous pro bono cases. He has appeared on numerous debates on TV channels like Mirror Now, Zee Business, etc. Along with that, he has also served on the panel of the Real Estate Committee of the IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mumbai. We warmly welcome sir. Let us have a huge round of applause for Advocate Aditya Pratap sir. May we request you to kindly address the gathering.
Once again, my sincere thanks to MITWPU for inviting me here and giving me a chance to address you all on this August occasion. My regards to Santosh ji, Kalpana ji. My sincere and warm regards to Senior Advocate Pradeep Rai ji and my junior from Nalsar, Shivankar Sharma. Today, as I speak to you on a very important topic, I will speak as a lawyer, but I will also speak as a common man. When I was in law school 10 years ago, in international law, we were taught United Nations, International Criminal Court, ICJ. I'll ask a simple question. Did these institutions do their bit, or rather, despite these institutions, have wars stopped? The answer is no. And the 2022 Russia-Ukraine war happened despite all these organizations and all these legal structures being in force. Which is why today, as a citizen and as a lawyer, I will actually speak. I will not only demand accountability from them, I will also put forward certain propositions. My first proposition is war is murder. My second proposition is two constitutional democratic countries never go to war. And my third proposition is for the citizens, that the defense of freedom begins with the street in front of you. Or as they say, an American will cross the world to fight a war, but he will not cross the street to cast his vote. With these in mind, Kalpana ji talked about certain historical events. 1792 French Revolution and the Vienna Congress, 1871 German reunification, and third, your World War I and the League of Nations. What is common between these three events? Despite these three, they were immediately followed by war and conquest. The French Revolution and the Vienna Congress of Vienna, immediately followed a few years later by Napoleon and the Napoleonic Wars, in which millions of people died. 1871 German reunification. Bismarck comes to, he engineers the German reunification. He thinks there's peace in Europe, but the peace in Europe is not built on humanitarian considerations. It is built on political calculations, which fall apart, and the First World War comes. First World War happens, millions die. League of Nations comes into existence, but few people realize that along with the so-called League of Nations, you also had a Leninist and a Stalinist Soviet Union which came into existence, which laid the foundations for the Second World War. Today, when we come straight to the present era, the Russian-Ukraine war, how it happened. How today, in an era of peace and tranquility, are lakhs of people dying. For that, we have to go back to the turbulent events of the 1990s. In order to prevent war, we need two legal mechanisms. Number one, a strong international regime comprising the UN, International Criminal Court, and all these things aimed at ensuring peace and equanimity between nations. You also require that within each of the member nations, there should be a constitutional rule of law democracy. Because barring one small instance, correct me if I'm wrong, two constitutional, popularly elected rule of law democracies have never gone to war in history. On the other hand, when we look at Russia, why Russia attacked Ukraine? Again, it has got to do a lot with the social fabric. Today, the Russian President Vladimir Putin, by his own admission, his grandfather was the personal cook of Lenin and Joseph Stalin. Now the point is that the history, again, 5.5 minutes is too less to cover that. But when we come fast forward in time, the Soviet Union broke up. Russia became a fragile democracy. Immediately, the Communist Party tried to mount a coup. The then Politburo member and future President Boris Yeltsin climbed onto a tank, gave a speech, and stopped the coup. So it was actually a major symbolic victory for democracy in Russia. But just 1 year later, you have the Russian constitutional crisis which happens. This is where the importance of constitution comes in, because at that time, the Russian president, he came to power in a popular manner. People voted him to power, but Mr. Boris Yeltsin put forward rash policies. Rash privatization, or as they say, shock therapy, in which overnight you remove price controls and throw the country into economic anarchy. Then immediately you start giving away state enterprises on a platter. The parliament votes to move him out. The same president, Yeltsin, who is the champion of the democracy in newly formed Russia, sends in his tanks, shells his parliament building, and gets a new constitution passed in 1993, which gives him overriding and literally dictatorial powers. 7-8 years pass. Mr. Yeltsin sees himself falling apart. He hands over the reins of power to Vladimir Putin, a person who comes from the old KGB and the intelligence, the core Siloviki, as they say in Russia, which had, the KGB era of the Soviet Union, which perpetuated mass killings, and which perpetuated mass repression, a member of the same thing. And first thing he did after becoming president was to systematically dismantle the rule of the democratic institutions which had been set up in Russia. So, given this, honestly speaking, the war in Ukraine was only a matter of time. The world should have seen when the first and second Chechen wars happened. The world should have seen where the massive bombings in Syria happened. Did you not see it then? At the same time, we should not also forget that Ukraine itself and even Russia were ripped apart by systemic corruption. So the point is, as I say, the most important proposition I would advise people, the defense of freedom begins with the street in front of you. History has it, if you expect international law and international institutions to stop the war is like putting Band-Aid on a deep wound. It doesn't happen that way. Because if a country, 5,000 years of human history since the days of the Egyptian civilization are witness to the fact that if the ruler of a country has the means to wage war, he will do it come what may. Which is what we saw in Ukraine. Think of it. Now, even after the UN was formed, we have the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Continental Africa ripped apart by war. You know, Middle East ripped apart by war. And the worst thing happens when politicians, like in the 2003 Iraq war, use the institutions of democracy to legitimize the use of force. Which is where I will put one more question to policymakers. The last time the United States of America declared war was in December 7th, 1941, when after the Pearl Harbor attack. Vietnam War was authorized by a Congress resolution. It was not a declaration of war. After that, be it the 1991 Gulf War, or rather the 2003 Iraq invasion, there was no declaration of war. The first and foremost thing is, and even the Ukraine is not a war. President Putin calls it a special military operation. The point is that what we have seen is, instead of declaring outright war, leaders have sought to bypass the mechanism of war and instead give military campaigns the color of either humanitarian assistance or an intervention or a special military operation. The point is, can an international and historically, since recent times, the weapon of international bodies was sanctions. Impose sanctions on the concerned aggressor so that his economy gets impaled. But then, as we saw, the balance of power changed. Today, leaders prefer building the countries into autarkies. Today, if the Russian president wants to continue his war, he knows he has among the world's biggest gas reserves, he has the world's biggest oil reserves, and he has an Asian bloc where the rule of democracy is not that high, where the leaders do not have that much of a human touch. Today, whatever European and American market they lost, they get it in China and India. Today, it would not be far-fetched to say that India's oil imports in Russia are footing his bill for the war. And finally, it should fall on the common Russian citizen to ask. Each missile costs $5 million. 5,000 such missiles fired. 500 aircraft lost. Each aircraft costing $20 to $40 million. All that money was more than enough not only to secure Russia's borders, but to pay for people's welfare programs. Put food on the table. War is murder. But before that, the citizens of the aggressor country should have the courage to not to fear arrest, come in the streets and say that what is being spent in the war is what is being taken from our wallets, what is being taken from pension funds, what is being taken from housing funds. That is why, as I close my session, I only put forward, I have a request to the people at large. My request to national leaders, before you talk of war, please sensitize the plight of a woman who loses a husband, of a child who loses his father. A good leader is one who would resign his post than bring grief to a poor individual family. Stop being megalomaniacs. And my request to people is, do not emulate the citizens of Russia. Do not live in your own worlds. Let your job go. Come on the streets. It is better to be a self-respecting person of mediocre means than to be a rich man in an oppressed country. As you see rich Russian oligarchs getting thrown out of hospital windows and so on. Money is not everything. Learn how to maintain control on the institutions of public power and policy. 10 minutes is too short a time to discuss this. I only seek to open your hearts and minds to more questions. And once again, my sincere thanks to all for inviting me here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for a very thought-provoking speech. And friends, as we proceed in this technical session, it's an honor and privilege to invite our next speaker, though on the online platform, Professor Gracio Muzu-Kongira, sir. Let us have a huge round of applause, and I request my technical team to kindly have Sir connected with all of us so that we can all benefit from his very interesting speech. And before I introduce Sir, just a quick mic test. Hello, sir. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you perfectly.
Yeah, we can hear you perfectly, sir. Thank you so much for being with us for this technical session on ISLP 2. Before I invite sir to speak, let me introduce Professor Gracio Buzukongira, sir, Professor of Law. Sir teaches international criminal law. Other than teaching activities, he has held various positions in the academia, including in the Directorate for Postgraduate Studies and the Office of Deputy Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs. In addition to that, he is a guest researcher at the Max Planck Institute for Comparative Public Law in Heidelberg. We warmly welcome Professor Gracio Buzukongira, sir. And let us have a huge round of applause, my dear friends, for sir's online presence, and a very, very warm welcome to you once again, sir. Hello and namaste to you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. It's indeed a great honor to be asked to make a presentation before the audience like the one we are having now. I do not take it for granted. Thank you very much for the invitation. Now, without further ado, let's straight continue. This is a continuation of the talk, because there is a coordination between all the previous speakers, whom I have to acknowledge have already said what I had prepared. As they were talking, I was going back to my slides, trying to see what I could correct, as they had already addressed the issue. And by the way, even before I make this speech, I also wanted to record my vote. I wanted to record my remote vote for the gender neutrality policy. Let that be on record that this is an initiative that we can only support. Thank you very much. So I thought I would speak about how to bring the balance between law, justice, and at a time of the changing society. And this is very important. It is very important that we highlight the changing nature of the society that we are living in, because this is where we are. This is what we've got. This is the we that we are part of is actually changing. And one of the presenters already highlighted to us that few years ago, the question of gender was not what it is today. And if you look at even immediate previous speaker highlighted to us the history of peace and wars and the current war that we are experiencing now in the heart of Europe. Things are changing and the world itself is changing. And now that is when you ask the question, as far as international relations are concerned, how or what will be the role of law and justice to maintain, not just to maintain, but also to promote peace, to maintain where there is peace, because it is important. It is important for the time that there is peace. It is important that it is not taken for granted. But where it is not, because it is most likely to happen that there will not be peace, and that there will be wars, and there will be armed conflict, irrespective of whether they are acknowledged as such or not. There will be armed conflict, there will be wars, there will be lack of peace. Now, what will be the role of law and justice to promote that peace that we have to keep, that we have to promote at all costs, because we cannot afford to go without it. And the current events are proving to us the necessity of that. And as the previous speaker, I will continue making reference to him because of the eloquence that the paper he brought to us. What is it that we need to do, considering the current challenges? Because the challenges are there. And the institution, we are talking about international relations. International institutions are there, international actors are there. But what is it that we are missing? How comes you would tell that, look, the League of Nations was created for the purposes of avoiding the repetition of the First World War, and then what has happened with the Second World War? The same question will be asked, and the previous speaker asked rightly that question. Now that we had the entire mechanism, the entire setup of international laws, the entire United Nations and other institutions, how comes peace is proving to be a challenge up to now? And it is at that particular point that you ask the question, how then could law and justice be balanced, even at a time of peace, or where there is no peace at a time of war? This brings in the entire mechanism of resolution of conflict, yes, but also the entire concept of transitional justice mechanism, whereby we try to see and say, look, now that the peace has gone fragile, what is it that we need to do to bring about a justice system that will address the ongoing issues? And this is important, that we highlight the need of law and justice, because we cannot afford to go without justice. And some of these wars could be, not that they are always that is the case, but they could be based on the fact of unaddressed, particularly long-time unaddressed situations of injustices. They could lead to war. That is one of the possibilities. And now, if the war is already there, because the war will be there, we have failed to prevent it from happening. If it so happens, and it's likely that it happens, how do we get out of it? How do we solve the conflict? How do we bring in a justice system, maybe using the techniques of transitional justice, to try and see if we could start to build up a system that will again bring back justice and law? Because there is a link. There is a link between the two. There is a link between justice and peace. There is a link between lack of justice and war. There is a link between the two. So now, we need to making sure that at any point in time, we are working toward maintaining a justice system that will help prevent the wars from happening. But in the unfortunate event that they do happen, let's have a mechanism that will calm down the situation, that will de-escalate the situation by addressing even these injustices, by addressing or by setting up or by strengthening the justice system in a way that it promotes peace. And now I thought we will have a quick look at what are the actors. What are the actors as far as international relations are concerned? Obviously, you would expect that I will start by highlighting the role that the state would play, the key role that the state would play at a time of armed conflict. And when we speak of the state, there are some aspects that we need to highlight. We need to highlight the role of the military, during armed conflict, because they are the one running the show. Now they are the one who are at war. And we are speaking of the times of war. What is or what are their roles? Yes, we will highlight the role of the state and its institutions, but let's do not forget that at a given point in time, as the war is taking place, the state itself could have been brought in a situation that the strength or the mighty or the existence or the survival of the state itself is in a very questionable status. And we've seen this. We've seen this during war times, whereby even the authority of the state is questionable. We've seen that before. It has happened. So now, how do you speak of a key actor as the state? How do you speak of a key actor as the state, which actually is in some situations non-existent, which is non-existent, which is not efficient? And now the challenge is that the war itself, the challenge that the war itself would bring to the existence of, the challenge of addressing the question of the challenge of the existence of the state authority at the time of war. You're speaking of an actor who is not even there. And we are not short of examples, but who speaks of the authority of the state in Somalia, for instance. But this is an actor that you cannot do without, but their status is questionable at this particular time. And you're even speaking of the role of law. What if the law itself is part of the problem? Yes, you have a legal system which actually condone, and we've seen this kind of dictatorship, we've seen this kind of tyranny, we've seen this kind of constitutions. And I was highly impressed when the previous speaker was speaking about the rule of law. What if we have a legal system which actually condone this kind of injustices which have been there for a long time and which are part of the problem? What do we do at that particular time? What do we do? What if the law is part of the problem? What if the legal system is part of the problem? What if the justice system is part of the problem? What if the existing institutions are part of, what if the existing institutions are part of the problem? What do we do? And the previous speaker was asking some very relevant questions. So you have to look at the role of the state and its authority and its agents. But again, we have to look at the role of the international community. What is it that international institutions are called to do? And you would expect me to say a word as far as the International Criminal Court is concerned. Obviously, it goes without saying that, yeah, we could assess the role that the ICC has played. Is it positive? Is it negative? Where do we stand now?
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. Really sorry to interrupt you, Buzu Kongira, sir. Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, sir, really sorry to interrupt you. I would just like to mention that unfortunately, due to paucity of time, we will not be able to have a lengthy discussion. So may I kindly request you to conclude your speech?
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
our role is to ensure that the laws are in place. Not just the laws, but good laws and workable legal system that will ensure justice and to making sure that the peace is there. And if it is not there, to making sure that we bring it back, because our survival depends on it. If I'm to make a conclusion, that is how I will conclude this session. And my apologies, I went beyond the 10 minutes which were allocated to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. That was indeed a very interesting presentation from your side. Our students really enjoyed your speech. Friends, moving to the next speaker, we have him online, and it's indeed our honor and privilege to welcome Professor Gary Lilienthal, Professor of Law, on the online platform. Before I invite him, can we have a quick mic test? Hello.
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you very clearly.
Thank you so much, sir, for that kind confirmation and your gracious presence. It's an honor and privilege to introduce Professor Gary Lilienthal, President of Carrington Rand, a collaborative network of about 60 scholars from around the world. He has authored numerous publications internationally, including a series of 3 research papers on the character of diplomatic law and a Scopus indexed book entitled Human Capital and Development. Lilienthal, sir, has worked as a law professor at universities in Sydney, Malaysia, India, China, Ethiopia, and Uzbekistan. He is currently the Professor of Law at Nalsa University of Law in Hyderabad, India, and Professor at Tashkent State Law University, Uzbekistan. Gary Lilienthal, sir, holds a Sydney University Law degree, a graduate diploma in legal practice from the College of Law in Sydney, Australia, a graduate certificate in psychoanalytic studies, a graduate diploma in psychoanalytic studies, a master's degree in psychoanalytic studies from Deakin University in Melbourne, Australia, and is currently engaged in a higher degree by research in law. His legal interests lie in the practical application of administrative law to corporate compliance, and he is an authority on the public policy currents underlying the intellectual property tort of passing off. His psychoanalytic interests lie in the fields of family therapy and of organizational behavior, including organizational change leadership through action research. He is a leading thinker on the application of psychoanalytic concepts and techniques to organizational analysis. We warmly welcome you, sir, to this 4th technical session of ISLP2. May I kindly request you to now address the gathering. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am, for that very kind introduction. Although I think it's an old introduction, I've had the PhD now, my doctoral research, for many, 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 many years. But let's proceed. Dear colleagues, the topic, international relations, society, and we. Please allow me now to take you back in time from our previous presentations into a completely different discourse, quite different to what we've been engaging with in the last few talks. In my view, the topic suggests a critical investigation of what kinds of law relate between nations and whether or not those laws filter through to individuals in society, and if so, how. Thus, I will share research with you now from my new Scopus indexed book, Regulation of the Professions in East Asia, as to how the professions are similarly governed internationally while meshing with both society and individuals. Let's proceed. The term profession is not to be found in the Greek or Latin language. It's not that old. The term profession first appeared only in the 16th century, applying to the so-called learned professions of theology, law, and medicine. No law so much in it in those days. It was mainly theology and medicine. Until this time, university teaching was described as sciences or studies. A profession now, however, consists of, it's constituted by a range of characteristics. Let me set them out. Prolonged, specialized, intellectual training. A technique, either scientific or institutional, based on natural science or study of human institutions. Remuneration for professional service in the form of a fee and not a salary. a sense of responsibility, a fiduciary duty to the client, formation of associations to test competence and maintain ethical codes. And remarkably, this is the case all over the world. Yet many other activities, such as accountancy and even management, are now also known as professions. In the light of this statement of significance, as I like to call it, our research objective to the research I'll describe to you now, that we are considering carefully, is to investigate critically the paradigmatic sources of regulation of the professions in the light of our theme today. Let's begin. Licensure is an ancient procedure for screening candidates for admission to a profession, to review the qualifications of existing practitioners, to work to establish ethical standards, to maintain, advance and enhance the profession's standards, and to assure fair dealing with the members of the public. We know that licensing is a very ancient instrument of governance, known around the world since ancient times. We have evidence that the ancient pharaohs of Egypt spent their days in the registry, looking at licensing and registration. Certification is similar to licensure, but is often limited to assuring a minimum level of competence for the purposes of professional practice, and with less attention to those aspects required for ethical standards and regulations of practice. The term licensing is considered in connection with the healing arts, such as medicine, nursing, osteopathy, dentistry, and similar. However, the term certification applies to those such as accountants, teachers, architects, land surveyors, and engineers, where around the world levels of competence are harmonized. Lawyers are neither licensed nor certified, but are instead admitted by the controlling courts in each jurisdiction. And as we know, courts around the world can be very persuasive to each other, and they certainly have been within the precepts of admittance. In their certifying and licensing functions, states also regulate professional admissions. The various professional associations establish professional regulations and standards to guide state licensing and certification procedures. And these world associations talk with each other. There is also a third significant force, which is called professional membership, where the various professional associations set membership and practice standards for operation within their specific professional associations. Let's discuss this membership. This is key to us. This is where I'll take you back in time. The professional licensing of their members originated in the guilds of the Middle Ages, G-I-L-D, the guilds. Admission to the guild was the equivalent of modern licensure and was the guild's specific monopoly. The phases and terminology of modern professional education still today follow much the same organizational skeleton of the medieval guilds and professions. Today's publicly announced purpose of licensure is, and I quote, protection of the public through assurance of a minimum level of competence, end of quote. It appears to have had the effect of continually recreating the medieval monopolies, but for now stated avowed purposes of public good, whatever that is. We are led to believe that that's been ethically deliberated upon, but I wonder sometimes. From ancient times, freedom of the City of London could be acquired only by one of the three original pathways of patrimony, apprenticeship, or by redemption from the Court of Aldermen. The scholar Pulling wrote that from ancient Saxon times, the power of conferring the freedom of the city was independent of the crown. So we're looking here at the beginning of admission. People not free of the city were designated as foreigners or strangers in accordance with the ancient law of Rome, suggesting to us the subsistence of an imperial system, and also suggesting to us that people who are admitted are neither foreign nor strange, implying international relations. The freedom of the City of London was essential for commercial activity and functioned as follows. Only city freemen could vote in parliamentary elections, vote in civic elections for councilmen and aldermen, be exempt from all tolls payable on animals brought into the city for sale, be exempt from all market tolls payable anywhere in the country, be exempt from naval conscription, and enjoy the right to claim freedom from prosecution except in the city's courts. Up to 1835, every person who wished to become a city freeman first had to become a freeman of one of the city livery companies. As a matter of fact, my younger brother recently became a freeman of one of today's London city livery companies. I was amazed. These were mercantile successors to the medieval trade and craft guilds, and still exist to this day in the City of London, as we see in my brother's activities. The freedom of a livery company was merely an ordinary membership. A person wishing to become a senior member of a livery company had to be first a freeman, both of that company and of the City of London. A person who was a freeman of both the city and a livery company was named, referred to, and thus identified as citizen and name of livery company of London. Without this freedom of the city, the person could not function as an independent professional. Thus, modern licensure depends on recognition by public authorities sufficient to retain membership of a profession. And the question therefore arises as to how this recognition is structured and for what purposes. Our argument in this research seeks to sustain the view, this is our thesis statement, that maintenance of societal hegemony, here we resort to political theory because we're talking about international relations. Societal hegemony has been the purpose of the professions since the times of the Middle Ages guilds, where Antonio Gramsci had found, while he was in jail, in Mussolini's jail in the 1920s, that the Western dominant class known as the bourgeoisie, since the French Revolution, ruled with the subordinate masses' consent, despite massive contradictions, and which he called the hegemony of the bourgeoisie. Our research paradigm in this research, it's doctrinal research, so it needs a special paradigm, is psychoanalytic in that it deploys both historiographic method and historical narrative analysis in order to construct its syntheses. That's why I've taken you back in time to look at the historical block. The research outcome, in summary of this research, is that in a Western style of state, the bourgeoisie rules by both domination and by hegemony, where domination is ruled by force and hegemony is ruled by consent, coordinated by the giving of professional advice to subaltern masses, which is arguably a transmission of bourgeois ideology, where the advice is set up to have essential value to them, so that when our advocate friends advise their clients, their advice has value. The dominant class may sustain the material basis of this economic compromise only by being the most dominant force, directing the field of production, while the subordinate classes must never be incentivized to withdraw consent to the rule of the hegemonic class. And they won't, because they benefit from the professional advice. The so-called historical bloc is a structural conception that coordinates society, just as a king used to do by use of references to bundles of myths as historical forces. The old guild structure still rules admission. Now, the dominant bourgeoisie must form a unified ideology and articulate this unified ideology to the masses and project onto them what they have learned in their years of higher education. Their success as hegemons depends on a validating truth in the bourgeois hegemonic ideology in people's daily lives, such as when their advice conforms to satisfying the exigencies of daily life, such as when a lawyer gives good advice that relieves the pressure of a serious conflict, something that happens in every avenue of human life everywhere in the world. This is a convergence of international relations. When the masses nevertheless fail to consent, however, either actively or passively, the state exercises coercive power over them by legally enforcing discipline onto such recalcitrant groups. In this paradigm, force and consent are the equivalent of each other. Similarly, the king in old times, before the bourgeoisie was in charge of rule, the king used to have, for many centuries, the power, you'll recognize this, the power to create and dismantle professions by means of the ancient prerogative proceedings in quo warranto. The freedom of the city was the historical device by which the right to make a professional level of living was enforced. Without it, the worker reverted to the ancient form of slavery. The oath of freedom of the city summarized those interests which professionals had given up in order to retain their bourgeois positioning after the French Revolution. Through this, the mercantile guilds became today's professions. The historic bloc forming a superstructure to keep these professional groups in this hierarchy was that of a historical narrative suggesting prevention of deceit in the trades.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I have one sentence left, ma'am. I'll just finish it for you very quickly. The Crown wanted to be atop this professional hierarchy by continuing in strict supervisory processes. Should it ever have seen the need to control the stamping out of deceit in the trades, now the world's bourgeoisie exercises Crown functions juridically. And colleagues, that concludes my remarks.
Thank you so much, sir, for that very invigorating speech. Can we have a huge round of applause, my dear friends, for Professor Gary Lilienthal, Professor of Law. And before we proceed to the next speech, I would like to request our very own Professor Dr. K. Greeson and Dr. Santosh Kumar sir, as well as Dr. Kalpana Jayas ma'am, to kindly do the honors and felicitate our special guest, Dr. Vijay Khare sir, Senior Professor and Head, Department of Defense and Strategic Studies from Savitribai Phule, Pune University. Friends, can we have a huge round of applause for Dr. Vijay Khare sir? Can we continue applauding? Thank you so much, sir, for making your gracious presence felt for this fourth technical session in ISLP2. As we move on, it is my pride and honor to invite our next distinguished speaker, Advocate Pradeep Rai, sir. But before we invite him, I would like to introduce, sir, Advocate Pradeep Rai, sir, is a senior advocate at Supreme Court of India, the Vice President of Supreme Court Bar Association. There are many who see dreams, but friends, there are very few who go on to achieve them. Advocate Pradeep Rai forms one of those few personalities. He started off his fantastic journey by completing his MA and LLB from the prestigious Banaras Hindu University. Sir then went on to have a flourishing career at the bar. Sir has now had over 25 years of experience of arguing before various courts of this country, including the Supreme Court of India. Sir was also designated as Senior Advocate in the year 2015. Sir has also given back to the legal field in many ways, especially after taking on the mantle of Vice President of the Supreme Court Bar Association. As Vice President, Sir has started many initiatives for the legal fraternity, which includes establishing committees like Grievance Committee, Health Committee, etc. Sir also organizes personality development sessions and other such seminars for the self-improvement of the members of the bar, especially the young ones. Apart from this list of achievements, Advocate Pradeep Rai, sir, also serves in various important organizations. He is a member of the National Anti-Doping Agency. He is also serving as the chairman and trustee of the Indian Legal Research Foundation. We warmly welcome you, sir. Thank you so much for agreeing to be present for the fourth technical session. Can we have a huge round of applause for Advocate Pradeep Rai, sir? May I now request, sir, to kindly address the gathering. Over to you, sir.
Honorable Vijay Khareji, your late arrival was actually everybody was waiting, so nobody got bored. Mr. Dr. Santosh Kumar ji, Dean School of Liberal Arts, Purnima Bakshi ji, the anchor of this program, Kalpana Jayas ji, Shivankar Sharma ji, K. Girishan ji, and Aditya, a part of my family, and my future colleagues. Most of you are going to join this profession very soon, within 2 years, 3 years, 1 year, and I never treat a law student as a student, because we all are students of law. When you join the profession and you start working, every day you learn something. So even we are other side or this side, wherever we are students only, and you all are going to be either our colleagues appearing against us, with us, and maybe becoming someone before whom we appear. The name of this university itself is very fascinating. MIT World Peace University. I have never seen a university named after world peace. I'm really very happy to be part of this function, this program, and I feel that such programs should be regularly organized. Today I was invited for this National Human Rights Commission's function where Honorable President of India were also there. I was supposed to had one technical session, but I said no, I have to go to this university. Last year I had promised and I will be there. So I am here. Normally, international relations, law, and peace, everything is dependent on how much qualified you are in the war. If your country is capable, competent, strong enough to deal with any kind of attacks, then your country will be peaceful. This we have experienced from older times. Name any great kingdom. Go to Maurya dynasty, Gupta dynasty, even Mughal dynasty. Up to this level, when our country was strong enough, none of the aggression happened. Nobody attacked our country. So first of all, we have to make our country strong. And then the country can be strong only when you actually have the respect for law, you apply, you practice rule of law, and you also work in the area of constitutionalism. Because in any country, even Taliban, they also work with right and wrong theory. And if the right and wrong theory is connected with the fundamental rights and rights of the public in general, then each and every country will be actually aware of rights of each and every one. And then the persons will become global citizens. Nowadays the time is that social media and all, they have made everyone global citizen. You are sitting here, but like-minded persons are being connected with you. And you are in touch with them. And ultimately, the growth of a country is possible only when you practice law oriented to the peace. There is no political rivalry. Normally what happens, many state governments, they fail attracting developments because whenever the next chief minister comes, they start attacking the other chief minister. Government should be a continuous process. Because one government has dealt with something, other government has to respect it. You can't just frame or you can't just bypass or sideline or set aside the decisions taken by the other government. Your country will never grow if you do so. Many states, they attract investments because their development or their MOUs are continuous process. I will just mention like a 2G case. Norway's top company Telenor, they were the telecom company, they invested in India. Because government of India had given a license to someone, they may have been crooked, they are maybe fraud, scamsters, but the company of abroad, government company, they are investing in Indian company, relying on the credentials of President of India in which you have given a license to someone. And then you cancel those licenses. After investing around 50,000 crores, thereafter there was no investment in telecom sector for a long time. If you make some mistake, your country will suffer. Your own industrialists may be in jail, but don't allow the investors to suffer, who have relied your document. As far as other factors are concerned, you see recently this in Ukraine, one member of parliament, leader of opposition, he was imprisoned yesterday for 8 years because he said that what Putin is doing in Ukraine is a kind of war and he is accused of war against a nation. So when you make a statement, ultimately we are from the legal fraternity, so we have to see that the justice system should be such that when a matter is brought before the court, the judges, the persons who are observing it, and the lawyers and even law students, they all should feel that yes, justice is being done. Normally what happens, we all are sitting here, sometimes a matter is listed before a court and a lawyer may be not appearing in the court, maybe outside somewhere, he knows what will be the outcome. Because we know the belief of certain judges also. And these 5% anomalies, we have to rectify. We have to deal with it. This is the great day, Human Rights Day. Small mistakes, like Britain thought that after Brexit, they will be doing so well. They don't need an entire European Union. And what happened after Brexit? The problem what Britain is facing, none of the other countries are facing. They thought that we are in the center, everybody is flying to London, everybody is interested in doing business with us. So they forgot the importance of you. When there is a combination, there is a union, you lose something and you gain something. It's like a small level, there is a joint family. 5 brothers, 5 sisters, parents, they all are staying together. You may gain something which you may not realize. But when you are separated, then you realize कि यार कहीं घूमने जाना है. Who will take care of us? Who will do this? Who will take care of the kids? And normally, if it is a joint family, many kids, they learn so many things in the family itself. Similarly, when you are working as a union, a group of the nations, you are safe from the attacks. Your strength is too much. Your entire borders are safe. And when you are actually dealing with the nation as an enemy, you have to spend so much money on the borders. Like take it India. In India is spending around 25% of their budget on the borders itself. And same with Pakistan, same with Bangladesh. Nepal is safe because India and China both have their own interests, they are taking care. But ultimately, when we can, yes, 2 minutes are left. I will finish fast. So ultimately, engine start होने के पहले ही बंद कर देते हैं लोग. So ultimately, the primary factor is that when you think about the peace, you have to always think about the nation, and that nation should have respect for rule of law. That nation should be a strong nation. At the same time, you should have a combination. One small mistake, like this Jammu Kashmir issue, we went on the issue of sovereignty to the UN in 1948. One spelling mistake, a clerk corrected the spelling. It was sovereignty. He corrected, he did not know that word, he corrected as sovereignty, so we went in the wrong section. In place of dispute, we went as an entire nation, and that application was filed. Natwar Singh, who was my client, who was then External Affairs Minister later, he told me all this. So small mistakes normally happen. I could have go on, but I will conclude in 1 minute. Other than that, arms deal is also a very important issue. Many countries, they talk to us, they come with the proposals that you buy this, you buy that, and they don't honor the deals of arms. Like we got Gorsko, the Second World War ship. Deal was done, amounts were paid, extra amount was paid, additional amount was paid, and thereafter 50 years, now we have got it. So all these things happen. If we want peace, we all have to be thoughtful. We all have to have the respect for the law. At the same time, we have to respect other nationals, and we all have to be treated equally. Rule of law is there, but equality before law can happen only when every citizen has the authority or has the rights equally. In the same matter, one side Harish Salve is appearing, other side Pradeep Rai is appearing, one side Aditya is appearing, somebody from you are appearing. How the arguments can be same? So everybody should have the equal opportunity, the process should be developed, judgment should be actually come with a great sense that which should become as a precedent, and ultimately that should be followed. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, sir, for that powerful and impactful speech. Thanks a lot indeed. And friends, it is now time to invite our next distinguished speaker, Advocate Shivankar Sharma, practicing advocate from Supreme Court, High Court and tribunals. As modestly requested, he would like to keep his introductions short, so I kindly request, sir, to address the gathering. Over to you, sir.
The problem with going as a speaker after such a distinguished set of speakers have already spoken, and as the person who stands between you and lunch, is that you want to keep the introductions short. Now, before I came here, I thought to myself, what could I possibly address a largely Gen Z audience to in something that they would be interested in, which also overlaps with international peace. Now, as someone who remembers how life was before the internet took over, I thought it would be a good place to start from as to internet regulation and how I think regulating the internet can lead to peace. Now, before we get into internet though, I want to talk about 17th century. In 17th century, you had a philosopher whose name was Thomas Hobbes. Now, Thomas Hobbes was writing about the state of nature. The state of nature was a very unique place. You see, there was no modern government, civil society was not there, and we were just living around, foraging and living in hutments. Now, he posited that the state of nature was violent. Life was nasty. It was brutish, it was short. This was a state of nature where if you had something that I wanted, I could simply take it away because I was bigger in science. Violence was the rule. In 18th century, however, we had another French philosopher, he was Genevan, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Now, Jean-Jacques Rousseau said that it is not necessary that the state of nature was necessarily violent. It could have been that we were peaceful. What necessarily made us violent was private property, saying that this belongs to me, this is not yours. That in turn led to inequality. And inequality is what led to our violent nature and the birth of a modern state. If we think about the internet in today's age, I like to think about the internet in this very state of nature. The state of nature is that currently comments on the internet are violent, they are nasty, they are brutish, and they're short. They make us feel lonely and they make us feel solitary. This is where the modern state must arise. It is the job of any state to regulate this space. If you lead to a situation where which a space is left unregulated, you will have large violences. Now, these violences can take place in terms of copyright theft, identity theft, internet fraud, trademark disputes, and other such important parameters. Now, what is basically the world doing in this behalf, and how does it all tie up to the subject matter of dispute? You see, Europe, US, and India are currently the 3 leading nations which have the maximum internet users all over the world. Everyone here right now has a phone in their pocket and is currently connected to the internet. The Europe here did something very unique. In 2016, they passed the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR. That basically meant that European data had to be stored, used, and then processed in a particular manner. The US came up with their certain set of laws. And in November 22, which is last month, India has come out with the draft data protection regulation. Now, I briefly just want to touch upon the 3 important aspects and how they differ. You see, privacy in Europe was only given to the wealthy aristocratic people. You have instances where Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are suing the Daily Mail for publishing pictures without their consent. So, because of Article 7 of the European Convention on Human Rights, which says that, let me just read, everyone has the right to respect for his private life, his home, and his correspondence. This basically means that privacy in Europe is a self-determinable right. I can ask you to stay off my private correspondence. I can ask you to not interfere in my private, domestic, familiar affairs. This is something which is inherent to me. No state can take it away. So that is what the European approach is. The US approach is a little more unique in that sense. Under US, you look at this right as a tradable asset. If you log on to Facebook, you're trading this right. You can trade your right of privacy. There is an economic sense to it. It is more transactional. If I have to sum it up briefly, in the US, sense of privacy is against the state. You don't want the state interfering in your private affairs. You don't want the state reading your private correspondence. Whereas the sense of privacy that we see in Europe is more horizontal. I want my privacy with respect to you. Meghan Markle wants it with respect to the Daily Mail. Now, where does this all leave us? Where does India come in, and which direction do we take is an open question which I implore you to think about. We are standing at the cusp where we are formulating our own rules. Should we follow the US model or the Europe model? My biggest problem, however, with what is happening online currently, with Elon Musk taking over Twitter, where free speech absolutionists coming and saying that the internet should be a place which should have no rules, no regulations, shall reign supreme. In India, under Article 19(1)(d), we have this concept of reasonable rights. It is my personal opinion that the internet should not be left as a space which is ungoverned. There should not be free speech. I am of the certain opinion that the Article 1st Amendment, which applies to US, does not apply in India. And that is what the approach India must take. The problem, however, does not stop there. Assuming India does take that approach, how do we force essentially these US-based companies to actually abide by it? You see, the problem is that none of these companies are based in India. They are based in California, they are based in Ireland, but none of them are based in India. If you read Lawrence Lessing's works, which is Code is Law, he has this theory that on the internet, how you code actually becomes the law. For example, if I say person X, if he tweets will not be visible to anyone, there is nothing that the government of India can do in that regard. After all, Twitter is a private space which is only governed by the laws of US. This is why the recent the recent digital media ethic rules which have come very recently about in 2021 and the draft of the data protection law which has come in 2022 mandates that every internet company which operates here has to have a local office. They need to appoint local grievance officers. There needs to be a grievance redressal mechanism by which if you and I have a problem, we can approach these internet companies. We can't left these companies absolutely ungoverned. However, this again leaves us with another problem. Who do you actually put in jail? How do you financially compensate a company which is not based in India? I do not claim to have answers to that, but these are questions which keeps me up at night. I am of the opinion, if there is more peace on the internet, there is going to be largely a lot of peace in real life. Therefore, just to conclude, we are going in an age of dataism. This is a post-human age we will now approach. It is going to become very difficult to tell a bot from a human. Texts is being written by artificial intelligence machines. Pictures are being drafted by algos which are outside our control. In such a post-human world, what is dataism? The liberal approach to dataism argues that much like capitalism, data should flow freely, that there should not be any embargo or ban on the movement of data, that we are basically absolute countless dots processing data and then adding it invariably, subconsciously, day by day. It will lead to a situation where we have to deal with a power which will be much more better than ourselves. Just to recap, and since this is a largely Gen Z audience, I thought of a good example. Imagine you like person A and you like person 2. You are in a conundrum about who should you finally go with. They both have been quoting you for so long. So you turn to Google. You ask Google, person A is quoting me, he's buying me flowers. Person B wants me to take me out for dinner. What do I do? Google AI responds, I have read every email you have written since you were born. I have read every SMS which you have texted out, every WhatsApp, every photo, every darkest, deepest secret that you have, I have read. And I think person A is a better option. And you said, no, but person 2 looks better. Therefore, you are wrong. To which Google responds, you are young. At 21 years of age, you have a 40% chance of going with a person who has a better physical appearance. But let me tell you, in a long-term vision, physical appearance only counts for 10% of your total long-term compatibility. Therefore, I think person 1 is a better option. This is the age of the swipe generation. I do not believe that there are days far when these questions are actually arising and we have to deal with such problems. I actually think about how we control data, how do we control these algos, and how do we govern them, which is a real problem for the legal community and as future lawyers. I implore you to think about them. These are all being drafted by engineers sitting in Bangalore, in California. What do we and how do we task them with making their algos more compassionate, more better, and eventually lead to a situation where scientific advancement has not corrupted our morals, but has only purified them. My name is Shivankar Sharma. I practice in Gurgaon on questions of internet law. It has been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. You were definitely not between their food for stomachs because it was a lot of food for thought as you blended theory and practice really well. So friends, it's an honor and privilege to now invite our final speaker for this technical session. Before I invite sir, it's my great fortune to introduce Dr. Vijay Khare sir, who is the Dean at Faculty of Humanities, Senior Professor and Head of Department of Defense and Strategic Studies in Savitribai Phule Pune University, Pune. He had been awarded a partial fellowship by the United Nations University, Tokyo, Japan. Dr. Khare was selected for the United Nations short course on hologrammatic terrorism, United Nations, International and Inter-Regional Crime and Justice Research Institute, University of Rome, Italy. He completed an executive leadership program and Advanced Mediation and Peacemaking Program at the University of London, UK. We warmly welcome you, sir. Thank you so much for making your gracious presence felt. Please give a huge round of applause for Dr. Vijay Khare, sir, Senior Professor and Head of Department. Over to you, sir.
Respected dignitaries on the dais, and future peacemakers, future ambassador for making this globe for sustainable development and making this globe as beauty of among each one. Being a Dean, Faculty of Humanities, I'm always afraid to interact with the law students. My grandmother says that have it friendship with everyone but not with lawyer. The logic is that she gave it because whatever you interact with lawyer, they will suspicious in all aspects. So when Abhijit approached me to be a chairman of this technical session, I thought that why should you are putting me in trouble to make me in this important panel. He said that, sir, you must come. And why I'm quoting this example of my grandmother, at presently in Savitribai Phule Pune University, I'm the Dean, Faculty of Humanities, where all languages, all social science departments, subjects, and the law under that faculty, and around 8,500 students in that, but every exam comes, I'm receiving more than 8,500 complaints from the only law faculty, only the law students. It is good sign because unless and until you are aware about the law, you cannot make a peace. And I'm really congratulate to each one for enrolling yourself in the law faculty. And I'm also congratulating this university for organizing such a wonderful seminar, or we can say that symposium on law and peace. Dear friends, my colleague, my co-panelist has given a different perspective about how to achieve the peace and what are the issues. But let me come to in a very nutshell, I will just, in a 10 minutes, I will come to the present global security environment and where we are and what is the responsible law and how we can achieve the peace. From last several months, we are getting the everyday information about Russia-Ukraine war. If there is a NATO versus Russia war, there is the possibility of Third World War. And if that happens, then Third World War will be a great risk, not for we are sitting here, but for the global planet. Because you are aware that just when US dropped a atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and disaster took place, and still nothing is happening there, just 2 atomic bombs, we could get that kind of result. But just imagine if there is the possibility of NATO versus Russia, then there will be a disaster of not only one European continent, but the global planet. Second source of conflict, we can find it if there is a possibility of intervention by US in Taiwan, and there is a possibility for war between United States of America and China in the name of Taiwan, there is the possibility of use of nuclear weapons. And third, the Korean Peninsula, where North Korea is trying to hit strategic bases through missiles on USA. So there is a third important source of conflict we can find out it. Then there is a risk in also Middle East. When war will start in Middle East between and among European, means the Middle East countries versus Israel, we don't know. Then there is a risk between India and Pakistan in the name of Kashmir, in the name of other issues, or there is a possibility of war between India and China in the name of border dispute. So these are the source of conflict where we can find the whole planet is now in a risk. You cannot imagine what kind of technology is inducting in the armed forces. Just 2 days back, one important book has come out, World Without War by Sandeep Waslekar, and he is saying that within our 24 hours, if there is a risk of war, third world war, and if there is a possibility of third world war start, within a 24 hours, whole planet can be destroyed, then there is no possibility of fourth world war. There is no possibility of any 10,000 years, nothing will grow in this good planet. So this kind of risk, we are in a risk period, particularly this 20 years in the 21st century. It is a very critical phase on global security environment. Look at the entire development, look at the entire issues. What is important here, the new generation is using new technology, particularly iPhone and other things, and connecting to each other. But at the same time, the same technology also is making a risk for our life. And recently, I'll give one example how it is important. In 2019, Russia inducted a very important, hypersonic missiles. And that hypersonic missiles, that technology, they use it in an algorithm. And if you want, for example, I'll give example. If India wanted to hit a Karachi by using missiles with the full loaded nuclear weapons, but if the technology algorithm has built in a such a way that missile cannot hit a Karachi, instead of Karachi, that can hit in other places, Islamabad. If that algorithm find that this is a mass destruction can happen in other place. So that kind of new technology, particularly artificial intelligence and other new technology inducting in the armed forces, and result is that tomorrow there is the possibility that anyone can create a havoc, particularly at the global security environment. And that's why today we all are in risk, particularly through the nuclear weapon. Now there are only 5 nuclear weapon states. They are possessing a nuclear capability, but there are 4 to 5 rogue states, we call it. They are also possessing some nuclear weapons. And in case, if someone used that nuclear weapons, then what would be the future of our society? What would be future of our global community? That is the main question, and that is you need to understand this important point. Third important point, let me highlight from last 200 years, if you take it, global security environment, why Britishers or why UK dominate the world, there is theory called sea power theory. And A.T. says that who control the sea control the world. And that was the reason US controlled the most, United Kingdom controlled the most of the world. Then theory called the Mackenzie's heartland theory, where the source of conflict is Russia versus Ukraine. That theory says that who control Eurasia, part of Europe and part of Asia, control the world. And that is the only reason Russia and Ukraine fighting to each other. Then third theory, who control the space, control the world. That is called the duet space theory. So one said, land, who controls the land, control the world. One is saying, who control the space, control the world. And earlier, one said, who control the sea control the world. But now, induction of new technology in nuclear weapons or how to carry or how to apply the new technology, that would be a challenge for the global community. And that's why, my dear friends, world is very good, life is very short. Each one are peacemakers, each one is a peace builder, and each one should think about how we can make a peace through the negotiation, through the dialogue, through the exchange of ideas, through the exchange of education. Unfortunately, the Savitribai Phule Pune University, where I am the director of the center, I am hosting more than 2,000 international students from 67 countries across the globe, and at presently, total number of 12,500 international students from 107 countries. We are giving that message that each one should go back their country and spread this peace, just not only through the legal framework, but for the global framework. And if we do it in that way, then we can make a life comfortable to each one, everyone, and that's why the G20 slogan, we call it is the one family, one globe, and one world. And on that line, if we think in that way, that would be real contribution for our side to make this globe sustainable and viable for each one. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your words of wisdom. And with this, we come to an end of the panel discussion that was very enriching and insightful. I would now like to request my technical team to kindly relay the resolution for the fourth session. Meanwhile, I would also like to read it for all of us so that we can vote for or against the motion. We, the participants of the second edition of International Symposium on Law and Peace, hereby affirm that we shall ensure friendly relations with all our neighboring countries in pooling resources and cooperating with one another, and to fight and eradicate all the global issues and challenges that are beyond any specific nation. We promise to promote faster proliferation of technological innovations. So let us vote for or against the motion. All those who are for the motion, can we please raise our hands? I think there's no harm in concluding that this was a unanimous voting for the motion. 100% for this resolution. Thank you so much. Let us give a huge round of applause as we come to an end of the most interesting deliberation on a very pertinent issue. Let us request our dignitaries to kindly stand up and pose for a group photograph. Let us capture this special moment and come forward as we pose for a group photograph of the final Thank you so much, ma'am. I would now like to request Dr. K. Girisan Sir, School of Governance, MIT World Peace University, to kindly propose the vote of thanks for today. Over to you, sir.
Namaste. I'll just take only 2 minutes. After such a thought-provoking session, it's very difficult to summarize and bring out a crux of powerful, productive, and analytical viewpoints from the speakers. The speakers highlighted about the role of global peace and the role what UN should play, and the role of law and justice to maintain peace, and the need for continuity in governments, and the significance of data protection and the limits to free speech, and also about the ongoing conflicts across the globe and the significance of looking for alternative ways. In alignment with the resolution, I would like to add just 2 words. That's all, before I go to the customary vote of thanks. I think it's time for us to start thinking and acting towards the concept of degrowth, like looking for alternative ways against our conventional ideas of looking at growth primarily from the point of GDP. I think it's time for us to start moving from GDP to GNH, gross national happiness. And in that context, I think I would like to add one more word, solidarity economy. I think one simple example was the kind of diplomacy shown by Government of India during the COVID, like COVID-19 diplomacy. I think that is one simple example of highlighting about the high importance of solidarity economy. I think with these two concepts, I am sure India and the globe will be able to contribute much more and in alignment with bringing global peace and harmony and sustainable development. We had a wonderful day, wonderful session. I would like to thank the speakers, the great speakers, and all other delegates of the dais and on the dais to make this session very vibrating and very thought-provoking and a lot of takeaways from the session. And I also thank the students, the organizers, the technical team and the management for making this happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And before we all leave for the lunch break, a very, very important instruction for all the students, all the participants and attendees of second ISLP. Kindly note and please inform this to your friends and classmates as well, that we are about to begin the valedictory ceremony. It's not even an hour's time. We request you to have your lunch and return at 2:15 p.m. sharp. And all those who are not present for the valedictory, kindly note your attendance of yesterday will also not be calculated. So please ensure that you come on time and come on, I mean, it is all our function and we are doing it for your benefit. So we hope maximum participation. Thank you so much, dear students. See you at 2:15 sharp for the valedictory ceremony of second ISLP. Please maintain the decorum.